They say you should never look under your bed at night. But what if you did and something looked back at you? Welcome to Creeptale, where we delve into the darkest corners of the night. Tonight, we're sharing a spine-chilling story that's perfect for listening to before you fall asleep. But beware, this tale might just keep you awake. It all began when Emily moved into her new apartment. The place was perfect, or so she thought. The rent was affordable, the neighborhood was quiet, and it was close to her job. But there was one thing she couldn't shake: the feeling of being watched, especially at night. Every time she went to bed, she felt uneasy, like someone or something was lurking in the shadows. Exploration development. Emily tried to ignore it at first, chalking it up to new apartment jitters. But the feeling persisted, and soon she started noticing strange things happening around her home. Objects would be out of place, doors she was sure she had locked would be found open, and there were odd scratching noises coming from under her bed. One night, the noises were so loud that Emily couldn't sleep. She decided to confront her fears and check under the bed. With her heart pounding, she slowly bent down, lifting the covers. To her horror, she saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her. She screamed and scrambled back, hitting her head on the bedside table. The next morning, Emily convinced herself it was just a bad dream. But the scratch marks on the floor told a different story. She called a locksmith to change all the locks and even installed a security system. But the feeling of being watched never left. Weeks went by and the disturbances became more frequent. Emily started researching the history of her apartment. She discovered that the previous tenant had mysteriously disappeared without a trace. The neighbors spoke of strange occurrences and eerie noises coming from the apartment, even when it was unoccupied. Emily's anxiety grew, and she decided to install cameras in her apartment. She needed proof that she wasn't going crazy. The first few nights, the footage was normal. But on the fourth night, she saw something that chilled her to the bone. The camera under her bed showed a shadowy figure crawling out from underneath, staring directly at the lens with those same glowing eyes before disappearing into the darkness. Terrified, Emily reached out to a paranormal investigator. When the investigator arrived, he immediately sensed a malevolent presence. He conducted a seance and discovered that a restless spirit haunted the apartment. The spirit of a man who had been murdered there years ago and whose body was never found. His spirit had attached itself to the apartment, seeking revenge on anyone who dared to live there. Climax key moment. The investigator performed a cleansing ritual, but the spirit was too powerful. That night, Emily experienced the worst of it. The air turned icy cold, and she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. She could hear whispers, incoherent but filled with rage. The lights flickered, and then she saw it, the figure standing at the foot of her bed. It lunged at her, and she felt an intense pressure on her chest, as if she was being suffocated. Just as she thought it was the end, the investigator burst into the room, chanting an incantation. The spirit screamed and disappeared, leaving behind a chilling silence. The investigator performed a cleansing ritual, but the spirit was too powerful. That night, Emily experienced the worst of it. The air turned icy cold, and she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. She could hear whispers, incoherent but filled with rage. The lights flickered, and then she saw it, the figure standing at the foot of her bed. It lunged at her, and she felt an intense pressure on her chest, as if she was being suffocated. Just as she thought it was the end, the investigator burst into the room, chanting an incantation. The spirit screamed and disappeared, leaving behind a chilling silence. Emily moved out the next day, leaving everything behind. She couldn't bear to stay another night in that cursed place. She later learned that the building was condemned and eventually demolished, but the memory of those glowing eyes still haunts her dreams. If you enjoyed this terrifying tale, don't forget to subscribe to Creeptale for more spine-chilling stories. And remember, always check under your bed before